Hello and welcome once again to Shade Tree Philosophy. I'm Dave, and we're going to start our study today in the Gospel of Mark, King James Version, chapter 9. We ended chapter 8 in our last discussion. I want to touch on some of that because I think it's hard to understand the beginning of 9 if you don't remember what happened in 8. So, in the early part of our last video, it started where Jesus had gone to Caesarea Philippi and had talked with his disciples, and he asked them who the people were saying he was. And that's when they said either Elias or one of the other prophets, or possibly John the Baptist raised from the dead. And he said, well, who do you say I am? And that's when Peter made his confession that he was the Christ. And he said, this was revealed to you by God, by the Spirit. And then right after that, Jesus starts to teach them what his mission really is. And that is to go to Jerusalem and to suffer at the hands of the high priest and to die and then be risen. And so Peter automatically just freaks out and he says, you ain't going to do that. And so right after his confession that Jesus is the Christ and should know what's going on, he's telling Jesus he doesn't know what's going on. And how many times have we felt like that, dealing with God and his plans for us? But anyway, that's when Jesus turns to his disciples and he rebukes Peter in front of them, I guess, not privately. And then he goes on to say to his disciples that, look, anyone who's going to come after me is going to be half willing to take up their cross and follow me. And that's where it ends in chapter 8. So we're going to pick it up here. It ends on the last verse. Let me just go ahead and read the last verse. It says, whoever therefore, this is in chapter 8, verse 38, whosoever therefore shall be ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of him also shall the Son of Man be ashamed, when he cometh in the glory of the Father with the holy angels. Okay, and that's how it ended in chapter 8. So we're moving on to chapter 9. Verse 1. The Gospel of Mark doesn't waste any time, and neither do we. And he saith unto them, verily I say unto you, that there be some of them that stand here, but shall not taste death, till they have seen the kingdom of God come with power. It's an interesting comment that he makes right here, and because for many people, I know for C.S. Lewis, well, maybe I don't know, but I do suspect that this was a stumbling block for C.S. Lewis from some of the things I've read about him, and because he felt like, well, this was Jesus' prophecy that did not come true, because that generation did not see the coming of the kingdom with power. And I don't know. To me, the coming of the kingdom was the coming of Pentecost. I don't know how C.S. Lewis couldn't get that. But I could be wrong about that. But there are some beliefs out there. I do believe that, this was one of the prophecies that Jesus gave that was not fulfilled. And I don't believe that to be the case at all. I think you saw the coming of the power of the kingdom at Pentecost when people were able to prophesy in languages that could be understood, but were not their language, the people speaking. But those around them could, from all over places in the world, because Jerusalem was a fairly cosmopolitan place and had people from all over the world. It was already known as a holy place and had been for quite some time by then. And so, some people had a hard time. I don't think so. I think Pentecost is what he was referring to here, but, just mentioning that little tidbit of information to start off chapter 9. All right, verse 2. After 6 days, so now, they spend a little time in that area. After 6 days, Jesus taketh with him Peter, James, and John. Peter, James, and John. That's his inner trusted group, I think, out of the 12. And leadeth them up to the high mountain, apart by themselves, and he was transfigured before them. And his raiment became shining, exceeding white as snow, so as no further on earth can white them. And there appeared unto them Elias and Moses, and they were talking with Jesus. And Peter answered and said to Jesus, Master, it is good for us to be here, and let us make three tabernacles, one for thee, one for Moses, and one for Elias. For he wist not what to say, for they were sore afraid. All right, so Jesus takes his three inner guys, Peter, James, and John. Those are the three he chose to take up to see this event. And so when he gets up there, he's on a mountain, which traditionally throughout the scriptures you can see where people are seeking God, they go up on a mountain. Moses went up on a mountain, Mount Sinai. As a matter of fact, the two people that are met here, Elias and Moses, both of those went to Mount Sinai, made a pilgrimage to Mount Sinai to see God. And Moses was given the law at Mount Sinai, and Elias had gone there at some point in time in his ministry after he had been trying to teach the people to come out of the worship of Baal, and he had called down fire from heaven. But at some point in his ministry, he had gone to Mount Sinai to see God. And so both these guys had gone up to a mountain to see God, and now Jesus is going up to a mountain, and there appears Moses and Elijah. And there's a lot of theories as to why these three came. Peter was certainly excited about it. He said, right off the bat, let's build three tabernacles. Now, tabernacles have a lot to do with, there's a celebration called the Meeting of the Tabernacles, I believe it is, where the Jewish people leave their home and they live in tents for a period of time to remember that they were, in the desert 40 days and 40 nights wandering until they had reached the promised land. And that God had provided for them during all that time. And so, whether that is a reference to that tabernacle, celebration of the coming of the kingdom, and they were coming into the promised land. Why he said that might be one reason. Another one was to set up three places of worship, maybe, because they didn't understand that Jesus was on even though he was meeting with Moses and Elijah, which represented great figures in the Jewish history, Jesus stood alone because he was the Messiah. So also, there is a point here that, Moses was given the law, and Elijah was a prophet. So it could be argued, and has been argued, that Moses represented the law, and Elijah, or Elias in this case, King James Version, represented the prophets. So Jesus was fulfilling the law and the prophets here. But anyway, Peter comes up and he says he wants to, build something, and let's see. So we'll read on from there. So he didn't know what to say because he was sore afraid. That's why he said so. That's what Mark says. For there was a cloud that overshadowed them, and it says, and there was a cloud that overshadowed them. And a voice came out of the cloud saying, "This is my beloved Son, hear him." Now, oftentimes God's holy presence has been experienced as a cloud. You think about the Israelites when they left Egypt. It was a cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. So this is one example where, God appears as a cloud. Another good point here is that Jesus' raiment and his appearance becomes whiter than anything on earth could whiten them anymore. And so this, when Moses had gone and was in the presence of Yahweh, his face, remember, became radiant and white, if you don't know that story anyway. And it lasted for quite a while because he was in the presence of God. And so Jesus is represented here as having a time when he was indeed, made to shine like the sun. And so here he is, transfigured on the mountain. Now, if you remember, this happens right after Jesus has said what his mission is. So here he is. He tells his disciples, the Son of Man has to suffer, has to die, has to be risen again. They hang around there for another 6 days, and then he takes these guys. And he takes them up on the mountain, now, and he has this time. Why at this particular time? Maybe to signify that this is when he's beginning his real mission. Before he was preaching the good news, now he's going to do his work that will bring about real change in this world and bring about where the captives are set free in the plan, the fulfillment of the law and the prophets has come. Okay, so anyway, and there was a cloud that overshadowed them, and a voice came out of the cloud saying, "This is my beloved Son, listen to him." And suddenly, when they looked around about, they saw no man anymore, and Jesus only with themselves. I've heard it said that this is where God's correcting them and saying, look, even though Jesus is up here with Moses and Elias, Jesus is the authority now. Jesus is the one to listen to. There's no reason to build tabernacles. There's no reason to build anything that might be in your mindset, because those are things of the old, and now has come the new wine. And so there's no need to build a tabernacle. There's no need to try to do anything but then listen to what Jesus has to say now. In the great traditions of Moses and Elias, he is leading his people out of bondage. Moses led the people out of Egypt, and Elias was trying to get the people out of worship of Baal. And here's Jesus leading us out of our condemnation and slavery to our sin. It'll be led into a new life where God is changing us through the work of his Spirit, through things like love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control, the fruits of the Spirit. Those things that we can have added to our life, Jesus is making ready for that to happen, and for his Spirit to be able to dwell in all men and change men into the likeness of himself. All right. And as they had came down from the mountain, he charged them that they should tell no man what things they had seen, till the Son of Man were risen from the dead. So again, Jesus isn't holding anything back here. He's telling, don't tell anything. So until I raise from the dead, that's when you tell people. Well, they must have been kind of a little disturbed, too, to hear that message, even though they had heard it once before. They know he's serious. Okay. Verse 10. And they kept that saying with themselves, questioning one with another what the rising from the dead should mean. So they weren't quite getting it anyway. And they asked him, saying, why say the scribes that Elias must come first? Interesting. They had just seen Elias. And that's what they asked. Why did the scribes say that Elias must come first? Excuse me, I have to drink. Maybe they're still trying to reach back. Something to hold on to. And he answered and told them, Elias verily cometh first, and restoreth all things. And how it is written of the Son of Man, that he must suffer many things, and be set at naught. That made no sense to me. Let me read it again. And he answereth and told them, Elias verily cometh first, and restoreth all things. And how is it written of the Son of Man, that he must suffereth many things, and be set at naught? So, but I say unto you, that Elias is indeed come, and that they have done unto him whatsoever they listed, as it is written of him. And when he came to his disciples, he saw a great multitude about them, and the scribes questioning with them. That's just kind of a jumble of stuff there. So let's go through that. So they ask him why the scribes and Elias must come first, which, I guess I would have to have been more of a Jewish frame of mind to understand. But I do know that there is something that goes on where they leave at certain meals, I guess on the Sabbath, maybe at certain Sabbaths, I just don't know for sure. But when they leave a seat at the table for Elias or Elijah to come before the Messiah to come, and Jesus is saying, well, yes, that Elias must come, and in this case, he did come, and they did to him what they listed, or what they, I guess in this it says listed, what they chose, I guess, and he answered and told them, Elias verily must come first and restoreth all things. So somehow, he restored all things. And how it is written that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be set at naught. But I say unto you, Elias is indeed come, and they have done unto him whatever they listed, as it is written of him. I wish I was a little more secure in what was written of him, but here's Jesus saying that someone has fulfilled that. It's funny here, he doesn't just come right out and say who Elias was and who he came. Many other some of the other Gospels say that he says that John the Baptist was Elijah or Elias. But here he doesn't say that. He said that he indeed come, and that he has indeed come, and they have done unto him whatsoever they listed, as it is written of him. And when he came to his disciples, he saw a great multitude about them, and the scribes questioning them. So he doesn't say here it was John the Baptist. It just says Elijah has come. Interesting. All right, so verse 14, and when they came to his disciples, he saw a great multitude about them, and the scribes questioning with them. And straightway all the people, when they beheld him, were greatly amazed, and running to him, saluted him. And he asked the scribes, what questions ye with him? And one of the multitude answered and said, Master, I have brought unto thee my son, which hath a dumb spirit. All right, well, we're going to have to stop there. I'm at almost 20 minutes. Again, the book of Mark is a quick, active, volatile book. It's got a lot of things that happen in it that seem, a little bizarre and that are not like the other Gospels. So I encourage you to study on your own, seek out, the treasure that the Scriptures have, the wisdom that of all time, the things that are really going to be eternal are found in the Scriptures, and we're doing that together. I look forward to meeting with you again on the next video. Again, study on your own. It's always a good thing. We are ending in the book of Mark, chapter 9, and I just finished reading verse 17. So we'll end there, and we'll see you on the next video.